Morning, everybody. I think, and we're 8:30. Look at B on time today. Comments are good. Let me get my notes going here. Are we ready? Are we ready, everybody? Welcome, March 24th, episode 341. Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for medium and small businesses on the planet. Huge news. Absolutely huge news. Hey, Ashley, thanks for listening on Facebook and for doing the sound check for us. Huge news. Module 4 of the Pathway to Profit Academy is released, finally released. I promised you it would be done last week, and it was. And the workbook was done as well. And then we had technical difficulties. So we worked hard. We, being Ashley, worked hard all weekend. Thank you for that, Ashley, and got it up and running this morning. So if you have bought the entire course, you can now download that module and the related workbook. And this module is on the math of profitability, contribution margin, break-even analysis. Why you want to skip looking at gross margins, look at contribution margins instead, how to do that, profitability KPIs, margin KPIs, efficiency KPIs as they relate to fixed assets. That is all available for you now. And if you didn't buy the whole course and you don't want to buy the whole course because it's not all relevant to you, you can just go purchase that specific module. So there's a link in the notes. Go to the Shopify store. You will find that there. There's a bunch of other content as well. There is coaching services by yours truly, but also by Len Walker and Craig Boyers, two world-class coaches for business owners and management and solopreneur, everybody. It's just go check it out. Check out that link in the store, and the module is released. So that is exciting. Markets today just green all over the place. Why? Because there is a anonymously sourced news article in the Wall Street Journal that says that Trump may or may not be considering deferring some of the industry specific tariffs, not the reciprocal tariffs on April 2, but the industry specific tariffs on chips, automotive, things like that, pharmaceuticals. So there may be a delay on that. Markets went, yes, there'll be some sort of tariff relief. And so everything went up, everything. Anonymous source article. This does not come out of the administration. So be careful about that. But everything is green until the story is corrected. And other big economic markets news this morning, egg futures. You know how egg prices are the biggest problem in the world right now, or at least in the US. And while egg futures have dropped in half. Okay, so eggs, just like any other commodity, you can buy futures sort of 3 months out or what have you. And the price of those futures has dropped in half. The market is correcting. The egg crisis is officially over. You do not see it yet in the grocery stores, but you will shortly. And also, everybody listening to an article, to a podcast on this morning, everybody is in the US is buying chicks. There's zero inventory of I almost made an inappropriate joke there. Stop it. Don't do it, Scott. Everybody's buying chicks for egg production in the US, and there are none available. All right. DoorDash and Klarna. There was a release on this late last week, have signed a deal where customers can choose to pay for food deliveries in interest-free installments or deferred options aligned with payday schedules. So, DoorDash, you can order your food, get it delivered to you, and not pay for it until later on an interest-free loan from DoorDash. Now, here's my question to you. Do you really think that's interest fee? Do you think it's interest fee? I do not have DoorDash in my small town. I've used DoorDash in Detroit when I'm there. When my parents were living there, sent them presents and food and stuff with a DoorDash app. But in my world, in Canada, and even when I'm traveling, I'm just always Uber. I'm Uber Eats, Uber this, Uber everything. And so I'm in Calgary in my apartment, and I order, some Swiss Chalet, which Canadians, about half of our audience is Americans, more than half, but a strong, close to half are Canadians, and there's some international as well. Swiss Chalet is just a barbecue chicken fries gravy kind of place, and so you order a half chicken dinner on Uber Eats. I don't know what that would be in the restaurant. I haven't been to a Swiss Chalet in years and years and years. Let's just make up a number, $20, $25, something like that. Well, by the time I get it delivered to the Calgary apartment, uh, by Uber Eats, it's going to be $50. You got taxes, you got surcharges, you got forced tips to the restaurant, forced tips to the driver, you got the priority fee, this fee, that fee. Do you think the loan from DoorDash will be interest free, or do you think it's just hidden? Do you think it's just hidden in there? It's amazing. We don't have DoorDash, as I said, and I live in a small town. Not the place in Calgary is corporate. I live in a small town. We don't have any food delivery services of any sort whatsoever. And my 12-year-old daughter woke up last week and she says, Dad, what I've been dreaming of? I said, what is that? She says, I was just dreaming that I got a Starbucks by DoorDash. I'm like, what are you talking about? She doesn't drink coffee. She just turned 12. I go to Starbucks every day, but she rarely goes to Starbucks. We don't have a DoorDash. She's never DoorDashed anything in her entire life, even while we're traveling. I don't know where this comes from, but their marketing is great, right down to my newly 12-year-old daughter wanting to DoorDash her Starbucks. How about a Doge of the day? Do you like those? Doge insider Sam Corcus. Now, I talked about this guy yesterday. This is the software CEO. I think he's out of the Boston area, and he's become a special advisor to the U.S. Treasury Department. And he is the guy that's been looking at the IRS. So this guy is super experienced at working with banks in their data systems, IT systems, to convert them to, being more modern, because banks are notoriously way behind on their technology. So he says the IRS manages the same amount of data, more or less, as a mid-size American bank. Okay, so they're not a large bank, not a small bank outside of the US, but a mid-sized American bank, same amount of data to deal with as the IRS. He says a typical mid-sized bank will have somewhere between 1 to 200 people in IT, and they have operations and maintenance budgets in like the $20 million a year range. So $20 million budget, one person in IT up to 200 people in IT. At the IRS, same amount of data, they have 8,000 people in IT and a budget of 3.5 billion a year. He says, I don't really know why yet. I can tell you that 80% of that budget goes to contractors and licenses, so third parties outside. So of the 8,000 people, they're not even doing the work. It's going to outside contractors. We cannot perform the basic functions of tax collection without paying a toll to all of these contractors. We have a 3.5 billion operations maintenance budget. We also have a 3.7 billion modernization budget. So that's like what, $7 billion. The modernization is to upgrade the system. He says that's a lot of budget and way beyond any reasonable cost for what you would expect at a private company for this. You find contracts, I love this, you find contracts that are 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, $50 million contracts. And you ask, like, why are we doing this? And the answer back from everyone at the IRS is, I don't know. I don't know. And then you cancel it. You cancel the contract just to see what happens. And what happens is nothing. Nothing happens. You just cancel a $50 million contract. No one complains that they're not getting paid anymore. We do this in turnarounds a lot. Things you don't understand, things you don't believe, just stop paying it, see what happens. It's a tremendous aggressive, but a tremendous tool. Sometimes you just need to do that. Hopefully this story kills forever the idea. I'm not going to talk about government efficiencies versus private sector efficiencies. No. It's way more than that. I hope it just kills the idea once and for all that there's anyone running the government at all. No one runs the government. There is no leadership. I'm not saying the individual civil servants are bad people, that they're incompetent. I don't know the U.S. one. Certainly, well, that's not true. I've talked to a bunch of the U.S. You'll find this hard to believe, but in our U.S. businesses, I talk to IRS agents. Not all the time, but sometimes they are wonderful compared to the Canadian Revenue Agency. Oh my God, they're helpful. They're so helpful and functional compared to the Canadian Revenue Agency. So I'm not saying civil servants are bad. I'm just saying literally no one runs the government. I think DOGE is pointing that out. USA Today, an article, I think over the weekend, the cannabis users under 50 are 6 times more likely to have a heart attack. Cannabis users will have a heart attack 6 times more likely. Excuse me. A new study shows that young people who consume marijuana are 6 times more likely to experience a heart attack than their counterparts, published by the American College of Cardiology. And they looked at, that these users are 6.2 times more likely to experience a myocardial infarction, commonly known as a heart attack, and they're also 4.3 times more likely to experience a stroke and 2 times more likely to experience heart failure. I think if this is true, and it is a very large study, if this is true, it certainly answers a lot of questions about what's been going on lately when you see younger people, athletes in particular, dropping dead. Terrible stuff. Researchers surveyed over 4.6 million people, 4.6 million people under the age of 50. 93,000 of those were marijuana users, and all participants were screened to be free of health conditions commonly associated with cardiovascular disease like hypertension, coronary artery disease, diabetes, and history of myocardial infarctions. And it excluded tobacco smokers as well to eliminate that potential risk factor. Lead researcher for the Boston University said the numbers appear significant, and researchers' biggest concern right now is studying more data. Studying more data. Until we have more solid data, we need some more regulation. Of course, he's going to conclude with that. I'm telling you, I've said this in the cannabis industry before, there's going to be a wave of re-regulation. There is clearly science that tells us that there is a medicinal efficacy to cannabis use. 100%. It saves lives. Some people really can't live without it. But there's also a wave and clear science that there is harmful side effects for some people in society. And this is on heart attacks and stroke, which I believe is really probably just a smoking issue. But heart attacks and strokes, clearly, psychotic episodes is a significant one. Although that could be backward science, right? Is it consuming cannabis with high THC levels that causes you to be psychotic, or were you on the verge of being psychotic anyways, and to gain comfort you start consuming THC products? I don't know. Science doesn't know the answer to that yet. But the point being, this is not just a solid wave of deregulation. There will be re-regulation, in my view. And if you are in the cannabis business, you need to be on top of that. You need to understand what is going on. By the way, since we are talking, hey, Kumail, thanks for joining us. Kumail? Yeah, Kumail, thank you for joining us on Instagram. By the way, talking about the cannabis business, episode 2 of The Grow. The podcast is released tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, 5 a.m. Eastern time. It gets released. It's a podcast about the business fundamentals, running a real business applied to the specific industry of cannabis. The idea here is to move past the negativity and the prejudices of the industry, and to explore the hypothesis that the industry as a whole has really bottomed out, that you can raise capital in cannabis and you can make a profit in cannabis. That is the focus, the theory of that particular podcast, The Grow, which is available on everywhere that you listen to audio podcasts, and also available on YouTube. That podcast is not about the genetics or the commodity or the efficacy, as we just talked about, or the societal benefits. It's not about regulation. It's not about the hot new product. These topics are well covered by other podcasts. Nope, this podcast is about leadership. It's about management in the cannabis industry, running a business, which means controlling the things that you can control, making more money, improving cash flow, restructuring fundamentals if you have to do that, creating shareholder value, monetizing, realizing on that shareholder value. Episode 2, which you should go check out and subscribe and like, is centered around SOMAI, SOMAI Pharmaceuticals, which I believe is in Portugal, and their globalization. I think they're operating in 20 countries, as I recall, even as a small cannabis company, and they are making money. And the reason they do that is they diversify their regulatory risks. And so they don't say that. That's what I'm saying. And you ought to do that as a business plan. Sticking with the cannabis theme, Entourage Health Corp in Canada announced a shareholder approval of a going private transaction. Episode 1 of The Grow suggested to you that every single one of you cannabis businesses, if you're public, ought to look at going private. I'm not saying you should go private. I'm not saying it's the right strategy. I'm saying you need to look at that. The upside to being public is you can raise capital and you have a market. Someone is making a market. Retail institutional investors are making a market, and so there's a volume, and it monetizes and justifies the value, your market capitalization. That's not happening for almost all public companies, not everyone, but almost every public company in the space has got hammered. And so you're carrying massive amounts of expense every year and not getting any of the benefit. You can go private, get yours on sound footing, and later go public again. Entourage Health Corp, according to the Globe and Mail Newswire, is pleased to announce the shareholders of the company have approved a proposed plan of arrangement involving I'm not going to tell you the name of the purchaser. They're just numbered companies. It says here that both of the related parties, both of those acquirers, the acquirer and the guarantor, are related parties to the Unit Pension Fund of Central and Eastern Canada. I'm not sure that's technically accurate, but whatever, good on them. And so they have gone private. I think it closes March 31. And the shareholder vote passed with 95.647% of the votes, which is cool. I am not going to comment anymore on this transaction. I just wanted to give a quick reference to it from the press release. And I want to say congratulations to all of the parties involved. And I think it closes, as I said, month end. I'm not going to comment more on the deal, but if you like transactions and you're interested in that, a lot of that will be publicly available. Go check it out. Plan of arrangement for Entourage Health. Martin Pelletier on X. Do you follow him on X? Pelletier is a Canadian fund manager, it appears. Maybe he's in wealth management. I'm not sure which he does, but he's a good follow on X. There's no doubt about. He made a post over the weekend strategically. He says, don't forget, there's an election coming in Canada. He says Carney is getting elected. Carney getting elected would be a positive for Trump, and here's why. And he lists out some reasons. Number one, Carney aggressively goes after Canadian oil and gas sector. No pipelines built because of the production cap, and the U.S. continues to get oil and gas at a substantial discount to world markets. Yes, that substantial discount, 25, 30% discount that the U.S. gets in a special arrangement with Canada, and they expect that to continue, of course, notwithstanding tariffing everything else except for that. So one hopes that Carney does not get in primarily for that reason. We should be taxing that energy going to the U.S. In an export tax, and we should be using those funds to build pipelines and infrastructure to value add that commodity. Reason number two, Carney's industrial carbon tax and high corporate taxes will incentivize industries to relocate to the U.S. 100%. So Carney says, I'm going to axe the carbon tax, as stealing from the conservative tagline. He's going to get rid of the carbon tax, and then he clarifies, well, just the consumer part of it. Just the consumer part of the carbon tax. The industrial carbon tax paid by the companies will remain. And that's just obviously going to flow through the consumers. He's going to double down on the industrial, and he's going to hide it from the consumers. It is a shell game. Who would have thought that a banker would just move stuff around to try to persuade in a certain direction? Who knew? Who knew that was going to happen? Carney's "we will win a trade war" approach means that Trump will get more internal support in the U.S. for ramping up tariffs. True. For housing prices here to continue, here being Canada, to move up higher as he opens up the immigration floodgates. Absolutely true. Affordability crisis worsens. His high personal income taxes and lack of affordability means the brightest, the best in our country will seek other jurisdictions like the U.S. True. All of these points are dead on, Martin Pelletier. By the way, on the immigration side, Carney is of the view, he signed up to some sort of group that says that Canadian population needs to grow from to 100 million people by whatever the time frame is. For context, it's 40 plus right now. And when they started this 100 million surge, it was like 30, 35 million, somewhere in that range. Um, I've told you before on this show, my view on this. I'm happy for Canada to be 100 million. We have so much land, it's insane. It just needs to be controlled. You have to have houses for these people to live in. You have to have jobs. There has to be medical. We give away, not give away, it's hugely taxed, but we have social health care in the country of Canada. It may not work, it may not be effective, but you can't get a doctor right now. There are so many new people, and the infrastructure is not there. Happy to grow, unhappy to provide any support or infrastructure to support these immigrants. Tracy Schuchart, Shuchart, also on X, a great follow. She is a tremendous insights news consumer and aggregator, and insights into commodity trading, specifically oil. She's very smart on that stuff. If you're into oil trading or trading in general, she's a good follow and a good person. Had the privilege of meeting her once. Canadian opposition oil CEOs call for the scrapping of the federal carbon price system. So while Carney is doubling down on it, the CEOs of the oil companies want out of that. Polyev said, so he's the opposition, said he would scrap the federal rules and replace them with expanded federal incentives such as tax credits to encourage companies to cut pollution. Carbon price, so it would be a reward, not a stick. It'd be a reward, which is the way that this should be done. Carbon pricing decisions would then be left to the individual provinces, which is the way it should be. We have in Canada, it's a very diverse population. I don't mean diverse in terms of color. I mean geographically dispersed and politically, ideologically different. It just is. Quebec people are different from Alberta people. Love them both, but that's a fact. And so the carbon taxing idea could be pushed down to the individual provinces, just like some touchy issues in the US have been pushed to the states. Canada's newly sworn in Liberal Prime Minister Mark Carney, who is narrowly leading in the polls. He is only leading in the polls on a national popular vote basis. He is not necessarily leading on a riding by riding basis, everybody. It's close. It's really close. So I'm not saying the Conservatives are going to win. And if they are win, it's going to be a slim minority, which would also be a disaster. Who knows if they could even form a government with the NDP being as useless as they are. So we'll see. But Polyev told reporters on Tuesday the country needs industrial carbon pricing if it wants to grow. Is trade volume, sorry, yes. So Carney says that Canada needs the industrial carbon pricing if it wants to grow its trade volumes with the allies. For a certain, so he's saying you can't sell oil to Europe unless you have carbon pricing in Canada, which is ridiculous. Britain, for example, he said it plans to implement a carbon levy on products imported from other countries with less strict climate policies. So what? So what if they do that? If they don't want to buy the oil, don't buy the oil. Canada should have approaching free energy within its borders. Canada should be the wealthiest country in the world, and we should spur manufacturing with relatively cheap or free energy. We have enough to do that. Who cares if Britain wants to buy it or not? In an open letter this week, 14 Canadian oil and gas CEOs said the federal scheme should be repealed to allow provincial governments to set more suitable carbon regulations. On Friday, the Pathway Alliance, a group of Canada's six biggest oil sands producers that proposed a $16 billion carbon capture and storage project aimed at reducing the industry's greenhouse gas pollution, added to the criticism. Pathway posted a statement on its website emphasizing the need to grow the Canadian oil sands and called for doing away with uncompetitive industrial carbon pricing system. That would be the tax, and that would be $16 billion on a carbon capture project that is untested, and no one knows what the hell's going to happen with that. The CEO argued in the letter that the national scheme puts the country at a competitive disadvantage. Yeah, absolutely, it does. Here's the game plan and what every Canadian should be pushing for in light of the changed U.S. Canadian relations, permanently changed, I would argue. I have argued over and over again. We need to produce more oil in Canada and tax it, export tax that oil. Take those funds, the new money that you just generated and invested entirely into infrastructure, into transport, into value add facilities, and sell more oil. Repeat. Create more oil, produce more oil, tax it, invest in infrastructure, produce more oil, tax it, invest in infrastructure. Canada needs to diversify its customer risk away from just entirely the US. They don't want that relationship anymore. We don't need to be hostile about that. That's not the hostility in these from Canada to the US. It has nothing to do with tariffs. It has everything to do with the 51st state talk. And we need to diversify security risk. That's what needs to be done in Canada. Lastly, I'd just like to throw out on a positive note here. Sometimes I like to pick up motivational things. Jacqueline Samira, who I don't know, founder and CEO of Howdy.com. I think I got this from her LinkedIn. She says, my company just hit $30 million in ARR. That would be annual recurring revenue if you're selling a subscription service. And so congratulations to Jacqueline on that. And the best piece of advice I can give any founder building their company is this: nail it before you scale it. I like that. Nail it before you scale it. Raising a whole bunch of money is bad for early stage companies. There are too many opportunities for false signals of success. Examples: you raise some money before you've nailed it, before you scale it. You can buy a bunch of customers or users, but they just churn out. You can have a high employee count and fool yourself into thinking that's a signal of your success. It is not. Your product has lots of bells and whistles, but it is a Frankenstein of a product. Here's great advice: solve one painful thing for people and blow them away. That's the way that you start a business. I thought that was terrific. If you can nail it with very few resources and your product or service delights people, that's when you scale it and pour gasoline on the fire. Love it. Love it. Good advice by Howdy.com. Go check out Jacqueline Samira on LinkedIn. I'm traveling east. I leave tonight, stay over in Calgary, fly east from there. And so I'll be traveling the rest of the week. I take my system with me, but we will see. We should be doing a show Wednesday and Friday, but we'll just see how that turns out. Theme of 2025, do you remember? Do you remember what it is? Defense wins championships. What does that mean in a business context? Get your accounting done, have your internal controls, pay your bills, file your taxes. All of that stuff is going to come back to haunt you. And when we're in a time of volatility to the point of a crisis, the best thing you can do is spend your time making sure that you are bulletproof and not at risk. Defense wins championships. We'll see you Wednesday morning if everything works out.